Today we are going to be talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse Always Ready bundle available at armoredrepublic.com. It's a very practical kit, including everything that you need all the way from hydration to first aid to general purpose to magazine holders and to a very comfortable plate carrier. So included is the Testudo Gen 3 plate carrier, and we also have 2 C3 plates that I've included in the bundle. So these plates are multi-curve, multi-hit ceramic, so they can take multiple rounds. I really like these plates because it's going to offer level 4 protection. Thank you guys for watching. Again, you can go to armoredrepublic.com, linked below, and you can purchase your Kyle Rittenhouse Always Ready bundle today.
The Bible appears more to whisper when it comes to sexual sin.
Are we going to keep bickering over secondary issues?
You asking me out on a date?
America has squandered her inheritance far too long. It's time she repents and returns home to her Father.
Hey y'all, welcome to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. This is a Tasmanian mashup with Cross Politic. I don't even. We're gonna find out, is the Tasmanian devil real or not, and is there such thing as a Tasmanian liger? Stick around.
I never know what I'm going to get. Ancient Paths Christian and Classical Academy is Columbus, Ohio's first and only 5-day Christian and classical school. Wow.
Name it and claim it.
Columbus, you were due. I was just in Ohio, you know.
Yeah, you were.
Just got back.
How far from Columbus?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Our mission is to partner with families in the shepherding and discipling of their children by providing a distinctly Christ-centered and classical context to educate, equip, and empower their children. I never like the word empower. It's just so Marxist. But anyways, I know what you're saying. To be wise, they're not Marxists. I promise. They're not Marxists at this classical school.
Conflicting messages,
I know.
Toby.
I'm just feeling a little bit mixed. Wise, eloquent, and virtuous young men and women. Enrollment is now open. Visit the website at Ancient Paths Classical Academy.com. That's Ancient Paths Classical Academy.com. But wait, I've got one more. Are you a subscriber to our Cross Politic email list? If you're not, you really should be. Being subscribed to our email list means you won't miss any updates about Cross Politic or the Fight Laugh Feast Network.
Like early deadlines.
Yeah, and discounts. You'll hear about what's on the schedule for the week, live events, conference updates, rowdy Christian merch, updates from our other shows within the Fight Laugh Feast Network, and you'll hear from sponsors on the show as they seek to take dominion for God's kingdom in the business world. To subscribe, simply enter your email address at the bottom of the page at fightlaughfeast.com. So go to fightlaughfeast.com, just put your email address in there. Never miss an email from your people here.
Awesome. So this really is, we got a bunch of our friends from Tasmania in Moscow.
Yeah.
And if you guys know, Tasmania is next to Australia.
Okay.
Is it fair to say that Tasmania is under Australia? Or, I mean, how do you guys look at yourself?
We're sort of the Texas.
The Texas of Australia? Hey, man, hey, where's that? Hang on.
You got a stinger for Texas?
I got to find that, yeah. So I'm going to have you guys just go around and introduce yourselves, talk about, your family, kids, what you do for work.
What are you doing in Idaho?
What are you doing in Idaho?
Are you lost?
So I'll go ahead and start with you, Josh, okay?
Yep. So I'm Josh. I'm the elder of King's Covenant Church down in Tasmania. So if you think of probably the biggest city in Tasmania is Hobart. We're about an hour's drive out of that, in the country.
Is that where you flew out of? You flew out of Hobart?
Yes.
To Australia, and then Australia to Honolulu, and then Honolulu to Seattle, and Seattle to here.
Correct. Yep.
Whoa.
I just mapped that out.
Whoa, bro. Whoa. Okay. Keep going.
I'm still trying to map it out. With
It's like
four kids.
Your eyes are like...
It was certainly a new experience because, I've got 4 kids.
Okay.
And the youngest is 2, the oldest is 8. So that was a challenge traveling with them. But
the whole family came.
Yeah, the whole family came.
Yeah.
So
brilliant.
And we've come over to visit the CREC Presbytery because we have been trying to establish our church as part of the CREC denomination and coming under the oversight of some of the elders at Christchurch.
Yes.
And just trying to progress that, take the next step.
How long is tell me the name of the church again?
King's Covenant.
King's Covenant, and is there a website?
Yes, kingscovenant.org.
Okay.
.org. So you didn't get like a .aw.
King's Covenant Church.
.aus.
King's Covenant
Yeah.
Church.org.
Yep.
Very good. And how long has the church been going?
So we started back in 2017.
Okay.
And actually, you guys come into this a little bit because it was in 2017 that we were going to a local Reformed church, and we were asked by basically it was a mission church, but the overseeing church asked half of the congregation to go and form another church.
Okay.
Because they didn't like the fact that certain members of the congregation believed in creation, Christian education.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness. Like creation was a divisive issue for them?
Oh, yeah. Many of the elders and ministers would describe themselves as theistic evolutionists.
Wow. Okay.
Or at the very least say it's compatible. It's not. It's a side issue.
And if you believe in 6-day creation, you're the divisive one.
Yeah, but because you're
Shame
bringing
on
up
you.
side issues.
Shame on you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Side issues, secondary issues.
So you were asked to leave because you were too biblical, and that's when you formed King's Covenant.
Yeah, so we thought long and hard about it, and we, ultimately we wanted to be part of a church where we could adhere wholeheartedly to the doctrinal standards of the church,
Yeah.
and not get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's keep going.
We'll come back. I want to hear more about that. I want to hear how I played a role in that.
Right, I'm John.
Yes,
I'm a.
I knew that much.
That's good. That's a good start.
What else?
It's a good start. It's a good start. I'm going to start talking like Yale's accents here by the end of the show.
You're not going to.
Come on!
Except you're not.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I've got 2 kids.
Yes.
Aged 14 and 12.
Are you an elder at the church as well?
I am not. Not yet. I'm a relatively new Christian.
Okay,
So
yeah.
baptized 2022.
Yes.
Wow.
Started King's Covenant 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
My first church, I had a come to Jesus moment. I had that. I had that moment.
This was your first church?
Yes. So yeah, it was late 2021. I'm fortunate enough to have that moment where
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Did you grow up in the church at all, or have any Christianity in your background?
well, I've been to churches as a young kid.
Yeah.
But never raised my entire family atheists. So
What brought you to church?
there was a sequence of events.
Yeah.
And you can only describe it as there was a hand in it.
Yes, of course.
But yeah, I was searching for something.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what at the time, but things came across my path. I was invited for they do a New Year's Eve service.
Yeah.
So I was invited. I was going to a homeschool group
Okay.
because I just pulled my kids out of school.
Okay.
Very sort of later than I would have liked, but that's a long story.
Is that a COVID kind of pull out your kids out of school thing, or?
In the end, that was the final straw. Well,
Okay.
my son was in a public school, and that was degrading faster than I would have liked. So I pulled him out first. My daughter went to what they would describe as a Christian school, but when they replaced religious education with IT, that was the okay.
You need more computer skills. That's your problem. That'll fix it.
So,
Wow.
Yeah, they weren't Christian schools, so
Yeah.
Paul pulled her out.
Wow.
Are your children Christian?
Yes, they were both baptized with me. I was very fortunate.
Okay.
Way to go, sis.
My daughter's in the
That's
studio.
his daughter.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, awesome. And your wife as well?
No, I've been solo parenting for 11, 12 years,
Oh, wow.
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
my goodness.
So
All right.
that's
Yeah.
it's full time.
Yes.
It's
okay.
yeah.
All right. So and I want to hear more about this, but did COVID play a big part in all of this?
COVID drove me. Was the final sort of straw. Pull the kids out because
Yeah.
there's sort of a period there where everything shut down and they learnt more in the 2 months that they were at home than they had in the last 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
You know, so that was just like
Isn't it glorious that the Lord uses kids to do this, someone who's otherwise, this is why marriage and family is a natural good. And it's even for pagans, for non-believers, for atheists, it's good for them to be married. It's good for them to have kids, because even in the midst of that common grace gift, you think of others, more than yourself.
Absolutely.
You have to. And then you begin to care, and then you need answers, and you need help. And then
you see the failure over there.
Yeah, and
you see the contrast.
And God, and in God's providence, that often is leading people to Him. So, all right, we'll come back. Kai.
Yes.
That's all I know about you.
Like the Greek conjunction Kai.
Yes, more or less.
Yeah, it's a very common Tasmanian name.
No, I'm not actually from Tasmania.
Great. Great.
You just ruined Toby's whole view
we
of
advertise
Tasmania.
this whole show as being about... all right.
Yeah.
I live in Tasmania. And
Okay, all right.
How long you lived in Tasmania?
I did my high school years in Tasmania.
Okay.
And then I moved over to the mainland, or the Big Island, to the rest of Australia. Was there for 10 years, and then about 3 years ago, I moved back down. I was a political refugee from the state of Victoria. You might have heard about the Victorian lockdowns.
Yeah.
Under Dan Andrews. So I was a political refugee escaping Victoria and went down to see my friends, the Downs, in Tasmania.
Wow.
What is the actual political connection between Tasmania and Australia? Is it
Tasmania is one of Australia's 6 states.
Okay.
It's a state.
It's a state of Australia, but it's its own island. So there's the main island of Australia, and then just below it, in the bottom right corner, there's the triangular shape.
And so Tasmania is like Texas.
Of Australia.
Yes.
There we go. That's Tasmania. Deep in the heart of Tasmania.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us about your family or what you're doing.
I'm a bachelor, so just me.
Ladies,
email us at contact@fightlabpeace.com.
I mean, are you open to an American wife?
Sure.
Okay, all right, there we go. All right. Did you grow up in the faith?
Yeah. Mum and Dad were missionaries.
Okay.
So I grew up my primary school years. So we lived in Bolivia in South America from 94 till 2005.
Okay.
So missionary family. Mum and Dad both Christians, so my whole family's been Christians my whole life.
Yeah.
Unlike John, I don't have a moment.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I've always been a Christian.
Yeah. God saved you early on. Yeah. Amen.
I used to be a Baptist, but I repented of that.
Okay.
Sorry, our Baptist listeners. He's Tasmanian.
They just talk really frankly there.
Crazy.
Do you... and do you have any official role in the church, or are you just coming along?
I've been nominated as a deacon.
Okay.
I haven't been officially installed yet.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Deacons are the best. They're just the best.
Okay. So, I want to talk about the COVID stuff with you guys. I mean, I don't know.
And the politics of Australia.
I don't know if that's the biggest thing that's going on, but we did follow some of that. I mean, when 2020 hit and everything shut down here, and at least initially there was like this, people are sort of like, what's going on? But media was a thing that everybody was like, yeah, we got to have the media. And so we looked at each other and we're like, we're going to a daily show. We hadn't done a daily show before that, but we started cranking out daily shows. So we came in here every day. I mean, there was
for like 2 months, we went every day.
And one of the things that we were hitting though was what was going on in Australia. Yeah, so
that's right.
Talk us through what that was like. And I know it's maybe, is it receding a little bit into the background? I mean, how much of that is still present, at least, politically or whatever?
I think we were pretty sheltered in Tasmania.
Yeah.
So Tasmania, compared to all the other states, probably had the least amount of lockdown.
Right.
And Victoria obviously having the most with Comrade Andrews.
Yeah. Okay. Were there a lot of refugees pouring into Tasmania during this time, like Kai?
There were quite a few, yes. Yeah. And land prices, house prices started escalating quite significantly.
Yep.
Yes.
And there's still a housing problem in Tasmania. Okay. The prices, it's actually really difficult.
Okay.
I do believe Alex Jones helped with that one. Pointed out Tasmania is a good place to go.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Thanks.
And all the house prices went up.
What a conspiracy theorist.
Well, I mean, we saw something very similar here. I mean, as we really quickly kind of reopened and we're like, okay, this is crazy. There was a kind of a refugee column lining up to come here, and even though Moscow itself, the city, I mean, as you may well know, I mean, our city is a relatively liberal city. Wanted to compete with Australia, I think, if they could, in terms of lockdowns and restrictions and so on. But we were able to push back against it enough to create some space that after Gabe was arrested and released and so forth.
They never enforced it again, even though they extended it.
Yeah, they kept on extending it, but it was virtually meaningless because there was no enforcement mechanism. But so what was that like?
So I think there was very little pushback. And I think the typical Australian kind of mentality was, we should just do what the government tells us to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And sadly, the churches really folded in that regard, to the stage where that there are still churches having remote services and saying that
to this day.
Yeah.
For COVID.
Well, it's convenience now as much as anything else. So by and large, it has receded into the background now. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's had a very detrimental effect on the church, and you can see the churches that have folded and those that haven't.
Who's the radio host that we had on?
DJ Payne.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, seems like he's been pretty outspoken. I mean, how widespread? I mean, has there been any? I mean, I can get, like, I think it's unfortunate, but I can get that maybe some, just not ready for it, caught flat-footed, shut down. They didn't know the answers, and they just sort of default to what everybody says. Yep. But I mean, over the course of 2 or 3, or now coming up on 4 years,
you figure it out.
Have people started figuring it out? I mean, is there more pushback starting to happen, or like that was a big mistake, let's not do that again?
There is a little bit. I would say that it's the divide is becoming sharper between those who want to push back and those who want to conform. Yeah. I think the problem in Australia is, especially if you like the conservative Christian group, is as a percentage of the population is lower than in America. Yeah. But even if it was the same, our population is so much lower that it's very fragmented. So yes, you've got the occasional church or minister or radio presenter here and there who are doing great work. But it's not really cohesive. Yeah. So it's ad hoc.
Yeah. Here I would say like the big things were obviously there was the lockdown orders themselves, which was one deal. But then we also had mask mandates and like kind of limitations on what you could do in gatherings, worship, especially being a particularly significant, heinous thing, and as well as privately owned businesses and that kind of thing. And then the vaccine becoming sort of mandated. And early on, even in our town, even in our liberal town, our mayor said, "Oh, we'll never do a mandate." Yep. And within like 6 or 9 months or a year, like it was being actually done elsewhere. Is it this kind of the same flashpoints for you, or were there any other dynamics to it that would be a little bit unique for our audience?
I think largely the same. It was quite interesting there that for quite a long time in our congregation, there was Kai who lost his job. Yep. There are at least 2, 3, 4 others. I changed jobs because I was threatened with disciplinary action if I didn't get it.
This is in Tasmania.
This is in Tasmania,
which is supposed to be better than Australia.
Which is better. Yeah, it was better than.
You lost your job for not taking the jab?
Yeah. So I worked in Victoria and I wasn't allowed to go to work if I wasn't vaccinated. Yeah. And so I didn't go to work and I was living off savings. And I thought, I know these, I had some friends down in Tasmania, Josh and his extended family. So I went down to visit, see if it would be feasible to move down, and moved down not too much longer.
Wow.
After that.
One of the things that really blew up here for, at least I think for a lot of people, that really was sort of like a red pill moment, kind of like just, wait a sec, what's going on, was we had the George Floyd death here, and there was the riots and protests that came out of that. So and suddenly you had this massive double standard. So in the middle of all this, no gathering together, 6 feet apart, mask up, like you might die. And if you get into a crowd, you're basically a super spreader. Yep. And then all of a sudden, when it came to this perceived, police abuse of violence and the death of a black man, there was suddenly this justification of no, but for this, you can gather together in big crowds. You can and we had there were literally pastors, Reformed pastors,
joining them in the crowds,
who were writing articles and arguing Romans 13, don't gather together, and don't be a super spreader and love your neighbor. And then as soon as the George Floyd protest, they were going out and doing the BLM walks and protests in massive crowds, and you suddenly were just like, wait, and so the real religion stood up, the real gods, when it comes to the real God, you have to, it trumps everything.
Yes.
Did anything similar happen over with you guys, or did that have any ripple effects for you guys?
I don't think it had a major effect. And I think that's partly because the media, the mainstream media in Australia, are so far from even trying to be unbiased that it's mind-boggling.
Well, neither are ours. I think ours are maybe just dumb. Remember, we have the there's the famous meme now. Is that CNN or whatever? The guys we have mostly peaceful protests, and there's
fires burning in the
background. And it's where was the executive producer on that one?
Yeah.
But I think they were just I just think they're so tunnel vision on their beliefs and presuppositions about the nature of the world, where it's sort of course, gathering for your silly church services would be stupid. But if it comes to defending civil rights, so-called, and racial, justice, of course we would do that. And so they would just report it straight up, but there's a whole bunch of other people saying, wait, what?
Yep.
We don't really get big protests like that. We sort of get spillover things.
Okay.
People don't really know what they're protesting or why, but you get people standing on the roundabout with their Palestinian flags, and it's
Okay.
So we get we had a bit of BLM, but if you asked them, they probably wouldn't know what it was about. So.
Wow.
Did you guys have the same? We had the governor in California going to wineries, and we had our mayor officiating weddings without masking or social distancing. A month before I got arrested, he had me arrested. But we had a number of just Fauci taking off his mask at a baseball game, sitting next to his buddies. Nancy Pelosi using the hairdresser in San Francisco.
Well, and who's the British Prime Minister during COVID?
Boris Johnson.
There was
partying,
pictures of him partying, at Downing Street, in the middle of all the lockdowns.
Did you guys have any of that kind of hypocrisy noted and catched or caught?
I just said there was a little bit, but not widespread, because they locked down. There were no ball games. Football games.
Yeah. Everything was just shut.
They shut things down completely.
We had baseball games, remember, with cardboard cutout fans?
Yeah. basketball games with cardboard cutout.
It's one of the most embarrassing things. I love my country, and I am so ashamed of the cardboard cutouts at baseball games.
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing. Baseball.
Who thought that was a good idea? You know what? We need cardboard fans. This is going to increase our popularity,
Yeah, man. I'm going to read this ad. Van Gelder Technologies is a U.S.-based custom software development company specializing in cross-platform mobile applications, web applications, and desktop programs. Leveraging open-source frameworks, they quickly and efficiently build custom software solutions that are tailor-made to fit your specific needs. There's no need for new Christendom companies to be content with offering subpar mobile or web experiences. Van Gelder Technologies can help you build better software for the glory of God. You can learn more, view examples of their work, or get in touch at www.vangelder.tech. That's VANGELDER.TECH, vangelder.tech, where technology and tradition meet.
I got a question, one more COVID question, then we should get into church stuff.
Okay. We were talking about church stuff.
Yeah. More focused on the church stuff.
Okay.
Now, we saw a lot of video of I don't know, you guys call them police, basically handling riots, pushing back, doing awful things. Yeah, the Gestapo. Yep. We saw a video I remember we saw this video of this woman getting arrested. It was just crazy. Now, of course, Australian media is like our CNN and our MSNBC. They're just bought into the government. Their government propaganda basically is what it is.
Yep.
So was that stuff that leaked out, was it true? How bad did the police get with the citizens?
Well, they were shooting rubber bullets at.
They were shooting rubber bullets,
yeah.
at protesters.
Because that's safer than COVID.
But there were protests.
There were protests, and they were actually really large.
Yes.
Like we're talking thousands and thousands of people.
But they weren't covered.
Yes.
They weren't covered
Right.
in the media.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this in Europe as well. I mean, there were protests as well in Europe going on as well with thousands of people, and it was just, but not very much coverage.
And I've still got friends in Melbourne who don't believe that
Those protests didn't happen?
Those protests
Whoa!
happened. Yeah.
Wow.
Because, well, it wasn't covered. It would have been covered in the mainstream media if that happened.
Right. Oh, my goodness.
Wow. So they were shooting rubber bullets. Like, for how long did this kind of like violence towards their own citizens happen? How long these protests happen? Like, what was
Too long. I think part of the problem was it's hard to define it because they shut down for almost was it 3 months?
Something along those lines.
Continuously.
Yeah.
And then they had they'd lift it and then they'd bring it back in and then they'd lift it and bring it back in. So during this time, my grandfather died and he was in Melbourne. So my dad went over to his funeral.
Yes.
And he got like a 2-hour warning that they were going to lock down the state, and he had to just hightail it to the airport to get out in time.
Man.
So it just brought a standstill to any kind of surety.
You can't plan. You can't plan anything.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And completely arbitrary.
Yes.
And also, people just swallowed it.
Yeah. Wow. In Australia, is it similar? I know we've talked to our Canadian friends, brothers, that there's not a First Amendment.
No, I mean, we have our constitution.
Yeah.
But it's more observed in the breach.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there are a number of things that should have protected us.
Yeah.
That are in the Constitution. But I think Australians, much more than Americans, are ready to just, whatever the federal government says. We don't even, we have state governments, but they don't play as significant a role in protecting from federal overreach as you have in the States.
Wow. Okay.
And if there's any conflict between a state law or a state's anything, then the federal one
trumps the states.
Yeah.
And we've been drifting that way heavily in the States. In a strange twist, though, the Lord has allowed for whenever we've had stronger conservative or Christian values trumpeted at the federal level, you get liberals and leftists that start arguing for states' rights.
Yeah,
and so it's which is in a strange sort of way,
Well, that's how our marijuana laws. It's still illegal at the federal level, marijuana. Yeah. But Colorado's passed legalized marijuana.
15 states.
Yeah, 15 states. A bunch of states have done it. They just ignored the federal law regarding weed.
Or the same thing with illegal immigration. When people have, there's states that is, we're sanctuary, states, and we will defy the federal immigration requirements. And it's, problematic in one sense, but on the other hand, it's nice to actually, it's okay, if you're arguing that states do have the authority to push back against unjust federal overreach, I mean, I'll take it in the short term, right?
You guys do actually have some lesser magistrates that will actually stand up against the higher magistrates, whereas in Australia, I can't imagine that.
Were there any at all in Australia?
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, because we had there was a sheriff.
We had some sheriffs.
We had some sheriffs around the country that said, I'm not going to enforce any of this.
Not in our county.
And I will stand up for your rights not to. I mean, eventually, DeSantis in Florida as a governor really pushed back. I mean, there were a couple other governors that and states that did a little bit, but nothing like that in Australia.
The government structure is sort of reversed. And it's reflected in the culture. So whereas you have powers given to the federal level, and then what doesn't belong to them gets to the states, and then what doesn't belong to them filters down. Ours is pretty much reversed. Yeah. So you have a set number of rights, and then the rest of it belongs to and that's reflected in the culture. So if the federal government says something, then that's
I'm glad that you understand that about our country, because I think a lot of people in our country do not understand that.
In theory, that's how.
I know, but it's absolutely right, and it's actually a thoroughly biblical point. It's that authority is not just an open-ended thing; it's limited. I mean, you don't have authority, and no one has. And this is all earthly authority. This is pastors and elders. This is police officers and judges. This is parents, fathers and mothers. You only have the authority that God's given you,
right?
And it's not a blank check,
right?
And if God hasn't given that authority to one of your superiors,
you can't assume it.
It's limited, and individuals have the right to say that's not your jurisdiction.
And it's sort of reflected in the culture in that if you got new technology like the internet comes along, then but the government has nothing to say. In theory, has nothing because it's a new thing, so they don't have that specific right. In Australia, it's almost as if you get new technology, new thing comes in, everybody looks to the federal government to say, okay, what are you going to do about this?
What? Go ahead, Josh.
I would just, from my previous experience of coming over to America, I think in America, it's sort of like, unless you're told you can't do it, you can do it. Whereas in Australia, it's very much, unless you're told you can do it, you can't do it.
Oh, man.
That's a very.
So how does that trickle out to like starting businesses and being entrepreneurial? Because I forget who I was talking to, some British guy. I was talking about how Americans tend to just kind of like they just start their own businesses. In Great Britain, it's a little, they don't just do that.
Yep.
That entrepreneurial part of it, I think it's a legal culture too that's affecting it. But like, is that kind of the same way Australia is, where it's like, well, I need permission to start a business?
Yeah, well, you need to jump through a whole lot of, when you set up your business, you have to set up how you're going to pay your tax. And so you've got to set up your business as a sole trader or as, there's lots of different options. And then you've got to register your business number and you've got to do all this before
How long
you
does
can
it take
start.
to start a business?
It would depend on the scale of the business.
Some businesses you actually have to get basically permission from other people in that same field to show that there's a market, that sort of thing.
Oh my God!
If you wanted to, if you wanted
no communism there.
If you wanted to start a school, you actually have to get permission from the local public school. They have to okay it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to say okay, there's room for this to operate.
Yeah, and I think the really difficult thing that we have, that we're kind of facing, is obviously we want to give our kids a Christian education.
Right.
And so we're homeschooling at the moment, because the Christian schools that are there are...
Well, he told us they were substituting Bible classes for IT classes.
And again, to homeschool, I had to get permission from the government.
Wow.
And if you start a school, then you can't just have anyone come in and teach. They have to have a teaching degree.
Certified, whatever, all that stuff,
Yeah.
Wow.
Which means they have to have been...
Can they get one on the internet through Fight Laugh Feast University?
Now certifying teachers in Tasmania.
We can make that happen for you guys. We'll set up whatever you need.
We'll take whatever help you offer.
So you're here to the CREC
Presbytery.
Knox Presbytery's meeting this week
in Moscow.
So you came all this way to come to Presbytery. And I mean, guys, what is it about the CREC that is particularly attractive to you? And is there anything about the CREC that would be particularly helpful in your context?
So many ways to answer that question. I think the reason why we're looking towards the CREC is, like I said before, we want to be part of a church where we won't get in trouble for believing and adhering to the doctrinal standards of the church.
And is yours like Westminster?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So ours is. So we use the Belgic and Heidelberg and Canon as supporting.
Yes.
But defer to the Westminster Confession. And I think that what you guys have, or what I've seen in the CREC Church, is the ability to take seriously those doctrines in the confession and apply them to every area of life.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in Australia, you really see in the church, you see this idea that all we need to do, we need unity, and all we need to concentrate on is matters directly referring to salvation.
Okay.
And anything else is a side issue. So it's this idea that God has a redemptive plan for you, maybe your family and your church, but the world can go to hell in a handbasket.
Wow.
And so you try and bring up anything like Christian education, like, what limits do you put on civil government?
Right.
And that's a side issue.
Right.
That's divisive.
Right.
We just need to have unity around the fundamentals.
Wow. Yeah.
And you've already given up. I mean, like the fundamental creed you've already given up is that Jesus is not Lord. He's only Lord over salvation. He's only Lord over your heart. That's it. And so you've already limited Christ.
Yes. He's not king in that sense.
No.
John, coming into this, I mean, like, you're relatively new. You're coming into a particular flavor of Christianity that's unfortunately relatively rare. It hasn't always been, but we're in an era we've been in an era of significant decline. I mean, how does all of this hit you as a brand new believer?
I've fallen in quite naturally into the church. My reading of a lot of these issues came along after I read the Bible.
Yeah.
So I read it only a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And my reading of it aligns with what they say. So I get surprised when I hear some of the more standard mainline. That's not what I read. So I've fallen in quite.
That's the problem. Is you actually read it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's my mistake.
But it's almost like, when you're evangelizing to a Mormon, you almost have to deconvert them from Mormonism before you convert them to Christianity.
Sure.
And in the same way, like the evangelical church, is like you kind of got to like
deconvert them,
not deconvert them, but kind of undo all their bad theology because it's affected how they read the Bible so much.
But maybe in your case, coming in from just scratch,
blank
scratch
slate
is probably a benefit.
Yeah.
But this is where COVID played a big part. Is when I was searching at that time,
right.
And I look around and the churches are they're just doing what the state's telling them. What is your purpose here?
Right.
So, I mean, when I first turned up, it was refreshing to be in a room with unmasked people.
Yes.
It's like I could see faces again. Just that in and of itself is refreshing. Right.
And we sang.
How many churches did you go to before you found them?
None.
Wow.
This was the first. It was literally because I was looking around and the state of the church in general, and you look at the Australian Christian lobby, and it just nothing appealed. There was nothing the church as a general structure offered that I was looking for.
Why? What was it about the mainline stuff that you saw that was just like, no, that's not what I'm looking for?
Well, it's like statism in a church. It's
wow.
There's no difference. I could just follow political doctrine.
Right. Like,
all right, that's it. Dishonor on your whole family.
And all your churches.
Dishonor on you.
Yeah.
Dishonor on your cow.
Dishonor on your pastor.
I think I'm thankful that there are more and more people waking up to this, but I think that message has got to get out more. I was just at a church in Ohio this last weekend. It was glorious. This faithful church went through a pretty significant, Pastor Wilson likes to call them sociological events. there was a
church split.
Yeah, but God is but the remnant, the core that held fast, God is blessing, and people are pouring in from all kinds of backgrounds, and people and it's like where a bunch of Christians, even Reformed Christians sometimes, are trying to be winsome and attractive to the world. And it's like, but what you end up communicating is we're basically no different from the world. We just happen to sing some really lame songs and get sentimental sometimes.
So I have been to other churches since joining.
Yeah.
And you don't get, so we go to church Sunday to worship the Lord.
Yes.
You just don't get that impression. It's a social meeting. You go, it's a bit of a rock concert sometimes, or you're just going to hear, just go through the motions.
Right.
Whereas with KCC, we go to worship the Lord on Sundays, and that in and of itself is.
And you were hungry for that.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is people don't get it. It's they want, and I think you're not the only one. I mean, I think God has done something amazing during COVID.
Yeah.
And it was, in certain respects horrific and awful. But I think in other respects, I mean, God just shook the whole world, and a whole bunch of Christians woke up, and then a whole bunch of non-Christians said, "Wait a second." And there have been like people like you pouring into churches, starting, YouTube, like watching YouTube, sermons, and like just hunting for answers.
Right.
I tell you another thing that stood out was the first time we kneel for the confession of sin.
Yes.
First time I humbled myself in a church before God. It was such a strong moment for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, in normal society, the only thing you humble yourself before is the government. And so that in and of itself was a major thing for me.
Wow.
So we got that's incredible.
That's glorious.
Yeah.
That's glorious.
So we got to wrap up here because somebody's got to go here in a couple minutes. But I got to deliver on my opening.
Okay, what was your opening?
Is the Tasmanian devil real?
Yes, but it spins the other way.
Because you're on the toilet, like the toilet spin the other way.
I know, Kai, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Am I?
He only believes in truth. So the Tasmanian devil's real?
Yes. Are they endangered? There's
yeah, they have been.
Most things are endangered.
there's
been a tumour that's wiped a lot of them out.
It's an infectious cancer that they get, a facial cancer, and because they're scavengers, and when they all try to fight over one carcass,
they all get
in close proximity,
and they get each other,
and then they infect each other with this infectious cancer. So there's an effort to try to find a cure for that infectious cancer that is affecting the Tassie Devils.
Maybe they should vaccinate them for COVID.
Can you have them as pets?
No.
Dude, you guys are so pre-mill on that answer.
I mean, but will we be able to?
Yeah, will we be able to, It's like, I will have a pet liger someday.
We will, but I'm not going to start the process. They are actually one of the marsupials with a really huge bite.
Bite. So
they can bite through bone. Easy. No worries.
So like
really strong jaw.
Kind of like pit bulls, but like
Tasmanian devils.
Yeah.
Why devil? Why do they call them Tasmanian devils? I mean, it seems like
because they can bite you.
They're wicked.
Well, they are actually really mean. But
I think originally the name came from when the first settlers to Tasmania came and were camping, and they heard these screams and all these wild noises from the forest, from the woods around them.
Wow.
That they thought, obviously, those can't be anything other than devils.
Wow.
So when they finally found the creatures that the noises belong to, they're the Tassie Devils.
Wow. What is that?
I like that one. I like this one better.
We can do that one?
We're leaving the show.
Turn up. There you go.
That's a good beat.
All right.
Thank you guys so much. What's your website again?
King's Covenant Church.
KingsCovenantChurch.org.
Yep.
Awesome. If you're in Tasmania and listening to the show, you should join them.
Or if you're in Australia and you're looking for a little more freedom, maybe, I don't know.
Come south, join us.
Awesome. So if you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. If you have kids, go baptize them, Kai. Until tomorrow. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. There's just too much going on back here when Knox is not here. So appreciate you guys.
Cheers.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.